Welcome to the Film PM podcast as we continue this series of episodes on how to create a doable, achievable production schedule for your film. This is Jeff Rhodes, and today we're going to talk about sequencing. Now, if you're going to create a realistic production schedule, you're going to need three things. The first is a complete list of all the possible tasks you're going to need to do in order to get your film in the can. Now, that's a whole episode of its own. We've already covered that. We call that chunking. And the link for that is in the description. Second, you're going to need to know how long each of those tasks, each one of those increments of work is going to take. That's a whole episode. That is what we call estimating. Again, the link for that one is in the description. The third thing you're going to need to do is to put your tasks in some type of order, and that's what we call sequencing. And how do we sequence? Well, we sequence through something called a flow chart. Now, what is a flow chart? All a flow chart is a graphic that shows some type of order. Now, a lot of industries use flow charts. They use flow charts in software development, they use it in manufacturing, and they can get quite complicated. The good news here is that we're using the simplest form of those. There's only two symbols that we use in our flow chart. The first is a box, and a box represents a task. We sometimes call those boxes nodes, but it represents a task. And the second shape is an arrow. One of those boxes comes first, and then we draw an arrow towards the second box, and that represents that task comes second. And we start to string a series of these together, and before you know it, we have a sequence. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, then we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And that's important for us to know as we build a schedule. That sequencing there that we just talked about, we call that dependencies. I must do this before I do that. I got to do this task before I do that task. But there's also things that can be happening at the same time. And we call those concurrencies. So we've got dependencies, we've got concurrencies. And let me kind of walk you through a simple example to show you what I mean. So the example I'm going to use is getting ready for work or getting ready for school, something along those lines. Now, for me, there's a series of things I do. I get out of bed, I go to the shower, I actually shower, I brush my teeth, I comb my hair, I get dressed. Those things are clearly in an order. I do them in a certain order. And again, those are my dependencies in terms of sequence. Now, I have to get out of bed before I can take the shower. So that's an absolute thing that has to happen. But what if I get out of bed, then I turn on some music, and while I'm taking a shower, while I'm getting dressed, I'm listening to music? Well, that's an example of the concurrency. So oftentimes things can be happening at the same time, but we also have to recognize that some things have to happen before other things. Now, how do you physically create a flow chart? Well, you can pull out a piece of paper and just start drawing boxes and arrows and create one that way, and that would be fine. The disadvantage is if you have a bunch of tasks, you may need a big piece of paper or a bunch of pieces of paper, and then when you start playing with it and moving things around, you're erasing. So it's a way of doing it. Most people don't do it that way unless they're doing something very, very simple. Some people use dry erase boards. It's the same type of thing. It's a little bit easier to erase and move things around, but again, you start to get limited with your spacing. In the old Hollywood days, and quite frankly, they still do, they oftentimes used index cards to represent the tasks, and then they would put yarn in between the index cards to show sequence. I've seen that used in construction years ago, and it's not an uncommon thing back in the day. You don't see that as much, but it's still a way of doing it. Clearly, also, there's software for everything, so you could find some graphical software. There's one called Visio that does this kind of stuff. So there's ways of doing it in a lot of different ways. I use Post-it notes. I have access to small Post-it notes, so 1 inch by 2 inch little Post-it notes, and I would just write the tasks with the Post-it notes And then I would put that up on the wall or put that up on a dry erase board. It's easier to move the Post-it notes around. So that's another way of doing it. So there's a lot of ways that you can do it. It's one of the cool things about the technique is you're not really restricted to software or anything like that. Play with it, practice, move some things around, look at it. A couple of general notes here. The first off is this is a great group exercise. I would get your production team together and as a team start to move things around in order, because what you're going to find is sequencing isn't always absolute. There are a lot of different orders, a lot of different ways, a lot of different sequences that you can put together, and it could look very different than what maybe you had in mind. One thing that I've noticed over the years is there's usually a lot less dependencies than you think. Free up your mind a little bit and pretend, at least on the first pass, that I had an unlimited amount of people. How quick could I get this done if I had people to do all of these different tasks? That will tell you the soonest you could get this project done. And then maybe back into it later on by integrating your people piece of it. But it's interesting. There's less dependencies than you might think. So I would play with it. I would practice with it. I would work through this. This is one of those things that the more you do, the better you get at it. But it's also a vital component for putting together a schedule. You have to know what order things are in before you can build out a schedule. So remember, it's estimating, it's coming up with your tasks, which is the chunking piece, and now there's the sequencing piece. This is Jeff Rhodes from Film PM. Good luck, and let's get that film made.